I want to show you 3 of my favorite techniques to create texture, from rhythm to pads. These are great when you're stuck in a pinch, but also when you're lacking inspiration. Let's dive straight into it. Okay, you've only got operator at your disposal. How do you create interesting percussive textures? Well, start off with the click and then just draw in a random rhythm. I'm going to change this sine wave to something that's a little bit more plucky. Okay, that's a little bit more tasteful already. Now we're going to set this wave to noise. It's better, but we're not quite there yet. So what I'm going to start with is an envelope MIDI device, and I'm also going to pull in an EQ. The sound is going to be dictated by the velocity. So what we can do is turn mod off, select map, and set it to the low pass filter. We're going to come back over to our piano roll, selecting all the notes and making sure that their velocity is at maximum. And then we're going to hold option and drag them all down, which creates a chance that some of the notes are going to be quiet and some of the notes are going to be loud. The envelope MIDI is now controlling the EQ8, so when it plays quieter notes, there'll be more like a thud sound, and when it plays louder notes, there'll be a higher tick sound. Just going to roll off the unnecessary lows. This is cool, but I want a little bit more excitement, so I'm going to grab an LFO device as well, put that just after the operator, and I'm going to choose my decay rate, turning mod off once again, and setting map to decay. Bring that right percentage all the way down to 0. And I'm just going to see where I want my kind of minimum percentage to be. So I think starting at kind of 25% is good. And then maybe working my way up to about 60, 65%. That's going to give us some variation there. And then one more thing that I want to do to make it a little bit more exciting is choose my phaser flanger, set it to flanger, maybe increase our rate to be a little bit faster, bring up our feedback. And now I can control the time to create these weird kind of elastic vibrations. You put a kick drum under that and you got a nice techno rhythm. I think that's a really fun way to add kind of percussive noise to your track, but let's move on to something a little bit more melodic. I was invited to a last-minute studio session over the weekend, but I had no access to hard drives or the internet, which meant I found myself without my usual sample selection. I scoured my computer for whatever I could find, and I had this vocal sample.
Why we gotta be in such a rush? Take our time, we can make it work.
The artist wanted a rhythmic melodic layer similar to that of Biceps Glue. Using this vocal, we're going to turn it into something a little bit more flavorful. On my laptop, I also had the HC Dream Engine, which is kind of my rack device for pull X stretch, which I've done a breakdown of on previous videos. That's linked in the top right. So we can create a pad from this free device. All we need to do is quickly record it in.
Why we gotta be in such a rush? Take our time, we can make it work.
So I've captured that vocal here. What we'll do from here is just play it out and record onto that new resample track. I'm going to slow that sample down. And we can kind of skip through it with the FFT size. And I want to capture these long legato drones. We're going to add some reverb to that. Instead of having 6 seconds of a phrase or vocal line, I've now got over a minute, or as long as I wanted to keep recording, of different flavors that I can turn into plucks and chords. But I want to find a new texture sound like this and see how I can turn that into a recurring rhythmic pattern. If we go over to complex, set this to beats, the forward transient, and pull the envelope all the way back to 0, you'll start to find patterns in regular everyday textures. Let's see what this section sounds like when we start to loop it over. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten about this vocal pad. Actually, what I'm going to do is put that texture under the vocal, and then on the vocal pad, select the gates, and set the external source to this weird texture that we have on track 4. As I pull the threshold down and only select the vocal pad turning off the texture, we get something like this. This helps me find something that I might want to loop, so I'm going to select this section and I'm going to look for different chords or different sounds. There's two sounds or colors that I really like here, and I'm going to put those back to back in this loop. From here, you can right click that track and bounce in place, and that will lock that groove there, so you don't need to use the gate or have that textural sound underneath, a real space saver. From here, what I can do is add something like Better Help, which is also available at the Patreon, which is just going to make this sound a little bit more loud and punchy, a little bit of EQ as well, and then maybe some reverb. Now, if you know the key of that original sample that you used, or if you have a little bit of music theory, you should be able to create some moving chords underneath. How cool is that? Now, before we move on to my most tried and tested favorite textural technique, let me tell you about today's sponsor, DistroKid. I release all of my music with DistroKid. They make it super easy for you to handpick what platforms you do and don't share your music to. With their marketing materials, I can make sure that my music is found professionally and pitched to the right playlists as well. There's discounts in the description. Let's get back to the episode. Seeing as we have chords that work with that, why don't we turn those chords into pads? We're going to do that from seemingly noise. If you've got your phone around, you can record the ambient noise in the studio session or the sounds of the beach and turn that into a lush pad. Let me show you how. I've got two sounds here. This is the sound from a Moroccan market. And this is the sound of waves from a cliff top. I'm going to EQ these sounds independently so that they sound good together. I'm going to maybe high pass the waves a little bit and take off some of the high end. And I'm just going to take out the extreme lows of that Moroccan market and then bring down that sound of the waves. Then what I can do is resample that on its own track as well. Now with this audio layer, what you can do is grab an EQ and set one of the frequency bands to 440, pitch that cue point all the way up, and then pitch the gain all the way up as well. As you duplicate this, you'll hear a tone. That tone is A, and what we're going to do is bounce this track in place one more time, and then Shift-Command-T, you're going to drag that clip to a new MIDI track. On that new MIDI track, you'll create a simpler instrument and convert it to a sampler instrument by right-clicking the top of the simpler. If you create a very quick looping region by pressing sustain on the back and forth mode, create a very tiny bracket next to your playhead here, you'll get something that sounds like this at middle C. Now you can play chords with this, but it's currently in the wrong key because it's set to A. So make sure that you set that root note to A as well. It sounds a bit weird right now, so what I want to do is come over to modulation, turn off LFO1, turn on LFO2, set the type to ramping and then the frequency all the way to 30 plus, turn A to loop start and set this to 100% for now. Now what will happen is you'll get kind of a granular synth. I broke this down in last week's episode as well. So this sounds really cool and really unique. We can go over to filter, create a little bit more of a pad with this by increasing the attack and increase in the release time as well. We can add just a little bit of reverb to this and EQ it as well. I'm going to add an LFO so that my EQ keeps moving from light to dark. Click map and then link it to the frequency. This is going to move in and out, but this time I'm going to set it to rate and maybe do like 2 bars. And then I'm going to sidechain this to that initial kick for some extra movement as well. How fun is that? Let me know in the comments which of these techniques has given you the most inspiration, and what you use in your own workflow to break out of that creative mind block. Thank you as always for swinging by, and I'll catch you next time.